Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I will be covering UFO sightings and alien encounters in the state of South Carolina. Shout out to Brian Thomason 5022 for requesting it. Before we get into it, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment as it really helps my channel out and I really appreciate it. If you want to check out more of my paranormal videos, you can click the pop-up on the top right corner for a full playlist. And if you have your own paranormal encounters, UFO sightings, or any other kind of strange story, you can either share it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my story submission email, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. So, with all that out of the way, let's dive into it. Berea residents report sightings. From the Greenville News, July 27, 1969. Several residents of the Berea area reported seeing a mysterious ball of fire passing overhead Friday between 11 p.m. and midnight. Mrs. T.W. Burden of 122 Cherry Lane Drive, Berea, was awakened by a noise like a gun to see a great big huge ball of fire lighting up the sky. Mrs. Burden called to her husband, who awoke in time to see the sky still lit. Their 13-year-old daughter Patricia awoke meanwhile. She watched as the ball gradually grew smaller and disappeared. The entire experience lasted several minutes, Mrs. Burden said. Both she and her daughter were frightened by the phenomenon. Mrs. Sarah Sammons, who lives near the Burdens at 406 Claxton Drive, reported seeing the fiery object from her bedroom window at approximately 11:30 p.m. and thinking, this is the end. The Sammons family ran outside the house to watch the object disappear. Both women said the ball of fire appeared to be coming toward their houses. Several persons called the newspaper to report seeing the object. One person reported it to Bill Folsom, who was on duty at the U.S. Weather Bureau at the time. Folsom said he was unable to tell the caller what she had seen. Visibility was reduced so that he could not see more than 6 miles from the bureau, he said. Folsom said if he had seen the object, he probably would not have been able to identify it for the caller. A check with the Federal Aviation Administration and the Sheriff's Office revealed the sightings had not been reported to those offices. Strange lights UFO, local residents say. From the Sun News, January 15, 1970. Unidentified flying objects sighted here Saturday remain unidentified. Several people have told about seeing the strange series of lights between 8 p.m. and 9:30 Saturday night in the crisp, clear night sky on a night when the temperature plummeted below freezing. Reports of sighting the strange objects of light were heard from two young men waiting to enter a downtown Myrtle Beach theater, a woman returning to her apartment, and another woman and her nephew who were driving in the Anor to Conway section. Mrs. Betty Vinson and her nephew, Timmy McMillan, both from Surfside, were returning home from Columbia, she said, when they sighted what appeared to be an unusually bright and very low-hanging star. We watched it a few minutes and it seemed to be moving slowly and was much lower in the sky than any of the other stars, Mrs. Vinson said. We gradually gained on it and caught up with it, then moved ahead of it. She said they watched it for about 15 minutes. It looked like a big star, but was continuously changing colors and moving. Louis Poloski and Ben Guys, both stationed at Myrtle Beach Air Force Base, had arrived at a downtown theater at 9:15 p.m. and discovered the next movie didn't begin until 9:24. Someone else, also waiting for the movie time, pointed out the strange, moving lights in the sky. Guys, who was a former air traffic controller and had worked in the control tower, said the lights appeared to be at about 10,000 feet and definitely within radar range. Both said at first they thought they were looking at the afterburner of a jet, but Guy said he quickly realized that was impossible, or he would have heard the noise of a plane at that height. Pelosi said at first there were only 3 of the brightly lighted objects moving across the sky. By the time 2 of the 3 had disappeared from sight, 6 more were visible. Guy said the last group appeared to be gaining altitude as they moved slowly across the sky in a north-northeastern direction. They did not appear to be flying in any set pattern, but were traveling at a constant speed and altitude, was the only way he described them. The last one of the 6 was sort of a straggler and then suddenly disappeared off the horizon, as if it went down, Guys claimed. Both Pelosi and Guys described the lights as round and very bright. Mrs. Ann Kennedy was entering her Myrtle Beach apartment when she noticed the unusual sight. I looked up, and there were these 3 real bright lights moving across the sky. I watched them until they disappeared. She described their flight as in a steady line and moving very low in the night sky. She said, "I knew they couldn't be stars." Mrs. Kennedy also placed the time of the sighting as between 9 p.m. and 9:30. The Myrtle Beach Police Department said they had received no reports of unidentified flying objects. The Horry County Police Department also said they had no information on the reports. Myrtle Beach Air Force Base Office of Public Information said they could offer no explanation concerning the reported sighting. They pointed out that the official Air Force UFO project had been scuttled nationally recently. They said, on the local level, this base had closed out everything connected with the UFO project only a week ago. Sighting of UFO reported. From the Times and Democrat, July 29, 1972. A resident of the Cordova area reported Friday to the Times and Democrat that he had sighted an unusual object in the sky late Thursday night. He said he had seen a similar object exactly 1 week ago, but the second sighting had made him more conscious of it, and he said he stopped his car and turned off the motor in order to get a better look at the object. The man, a pilot himself, said he thought at first it might be an aircraft coming in for a landing at the local airport. However, he said he saw no navigational lights and heard absolutely no sound, as would have been heard even if the plane was coming in low on the glide path. He said the sighting occurred about 11:45 p.m. The sky was overcast, and there was no moon or stars, and no reflected glow in the sky. He said he could not distinguish the size and shape of the object, but said it was about 1 mile off and about 1,500 feet in the sky, moving at an estimated 60 to 70 miles per hour. The main distinguishing feature, he said, was a brilliant light resembling a floodlight. Watched for about 10 minutes, the object moved east from a southwesterly direction, but did not turn onto an approach for the airport. The Orangeburg Police Department said they had had no other reports of a UFO, and a spokesman for the airport said he could not imagine what it might have been, but said planes land at the local airstrip all hours of the day and night, and suggested someone may have been making an instrument approach and had their engine cut back to make this approach. Captain Van Houten from Shaw AFB in Sumter said he had heard nothing about it. "I don't know what it could have been," he said. "A couple of our squadrons are on night flying missions now, and they use that area, but I don't believe they have been out the past several nights because of bad weather conditions." Captain Van Houten suggested local authorities be notified and a watch kept. Reports of further sightings, he said, should be made to FAA authorities. The man who sighted the object said he didn't wish to be identified at this time, but said he strongly doubted the thing he saw was an airplane. Even at low altitudes, preparatory to landing, he noted, there would be some volume of sound, and he heard none. He also noted the object was not headed for the airport at any time while he had it in view. Youths claim saucer landed on Highway 18. From the Gaffney Ledger, January 26, 1973. You might not believe this, and officially they don't exist, but a Cherokee County youth who, for obvious reasons, asked not to be identified, said he was traveling south on SC Highway 18 about 13 miles south of Gaffney about 11:25 p.m. Friday, January 19th, when his attention was attracted to a number of various colored lights flashing on and off in the highway directly ahead of his car. Thinking there had been a wreck and that the lights were signals from wreckers and patrol cars, the youth began slowing his vehicle. However, when he got closer to the scene, he was shocked to see that there was no wreck, but that the flashing lights he observed were originating from a domed, saucer-shaped object sitting in the middle of the road and surrounded by about a dozen men. The youth, who for a moment doubted his sanity and who admittedly was very frightened by what he saw, turned his car to the left onto a secondary road near the object and quickly fled. In an interview the following Monday, January 22nd, the youth said the object, which was supported by 3 legs or struts, and which occupied about 3/4 of the highway, glowed a dark yellow, similar to the glow of a light bulb. Extending from the bottom portion of the object was a set of steps or a ladder. Around the object were about a dozen men, each wearing an outfit resembling white coveralls on which were various buttons, buckles, and belts. The men were average height and had faces the color of Caucasians. Each of them appeared to have jet black hair. On their hands were what appeared to be white gloves. The witness didn't remember observing their feet. The men did nothing but stand in their position near the object. Those who were facing in another direction away from the witness slowly turned their heads and looked at the approaching car, but showed no particular interest in it. An unusual fact about the men, one which the witness was reluctant to mention, was that they appeared to waver much as an object appears to do when viewed through the heat radiating from a heater. As the youth said, they sort of wiggled like a worm. The object itself had a curved bottom like a plate, and a curved or angled upper section capped by a dome. The dome, the witness said, was the most prominent characteristic of the object because of its large size. The position below the dome was thinner as measured from the curved bottom to the base of the dome. The flashing lights, which had been the prelude to the experience, were arranged in a band around the base of the dome. The lights were all colors, green, blue, red, white, and didn't appear to be arranged in any particular order. There were no windows or other openings in the object other than in the area where the steps were located. However, that section of the object was turned away from the witness and could not be observed closely. It appeared as though the steps were made into a door, one of which had dropped from the curved bottom of the object. The witness said there would not have been enough space for his car to pass under the object, and that the men could not have stood beneath it without stooping. He also said a car could not have passed the object on the highway, and noted that he had met no other vehicles prior to observing the object. He estimated that the object covered about 3/4 of the width of the highway, which would place its diameter at about 15 feet at least, since the highway pavement in that area measures about 22 feet in width, according to State Highway Department figures. The height of the object, from its curved bottom to the top of the dome, was judged to be about the same as its width. The object appeared to be constructed of a material resembling fiberglass. A later visit to the alleged landing site revealed no physical evidence that the reported event actually occurred. However, the youth's story is supported by statements from several other persons who reportedly saw unusual flying lights in the same area during the same week. One woman said that a light followed her car for a considerable distance down Highway 18 late Monday night, January 15th, near the site of the alleged landing. She said the light continued to follow the car after she turned onto a secondary road leading to her home and remained close by for a period of time after she had gone into the house. At least 3 other persons are said to have seen mysterious flying lights in the same area, one of them on the same night of the alleged landing. Perhaps it should be noted at this time that the youth said he does not drink and had not been smoking marijuana nor taking other drugs. He did not believe in flying saucers prior to his experience, nor was he particularly interested in them. However, he is now seriously considering the possibility of their existence. Watching Them Watching Us, from the Gaffney Ledger, February 2nd, 1973. On the front page of last Friday's Ledger was the story of a Cherokee County youth who claimed he saw a UFO, unidentified flying object, or flying saucer, if you will, and its occupants landed on Highway 18 about 13 miles south of Gaffney. There have been several inquiries from persons interested in the story and several reports from persons who said they have seen similar objects. Many persons asked if the youth really saw what he said he did, or was his story some sort of joke. During my investigations of the incident, I have found no reason to disbelieve the story other than its unbelievable nature, and I feel the story cannot be dismissed solely on those grounds. However, I hasten to add that I have found no physical evidence that the reported event actually occurred. We have only the boy's word that it did. Such is the case with many reported UFO sightings. It seems the UFOs seldom leave any physical evidence that they appeared. The youth's story is similar to stories being told by persons all over the world. As Dr. J. Allen Hynek, former scientific consultant to the Air Force on UFOs, points out in his book, The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry, if UFOs are merely figments of people's imaginations, then their imaginations are certainly limited, because most of them tell basically the same story. If the Highway 18 UFO is a figment of the youth's imagination, what did he have to gain from telling the story other than to invite ridicule from his fellows? If the story was indeed a fantasy contrived as a joke, there appears to be an unmistakable flaw. In his description of the men he said were observed standing around the landed UFO, the youth said they appeared to have an undulating motion about them. As he put it, they sort of wiggled like a worm. If the story was indeed a figment of the youth's imagination, why would he include a fact such as this which would tend to discredit the entire story? It is such inconsistencies in UFO reports which tend to make them even more credible. Following publication of the youth's story, another local youth phoned to say he had observed an object similar to the drawing in the paper in a field in the same community about 2 years ago. The youth refused to identify himself and declined to be interviewed, so his story cannot be verified. However, we did interview a Gaffney woman, whose name we are withholding, who said her car was followed by a bright light in the same area as the reported landing. The woman also was traveling south on Highway 18 4 nights before the reported landing, when she noticed a glowing object, shaped like a flat disc, with a lot of red lights around the bottom, keeping pace with her just ahead of her car. The object, which appeared silver in color, like sunlight reflecting from a piece of aluminum, paced the car for a considerable distance down Highway 18 and continued to follow after she turned onto a secondary road. Finally, the object seemed to merge into a larger object and a larger UFO, which had been stationary, then moved away. A teenage Gaffney girl said she observed a glowing oval-shaped object last Tuesday week, which appeared to follow traffic on I-85. That object, also seen at night, was yellow with white lights blinking on and off and going around on its bottom. The girl noticed a bad static on the car radio, which prevented the radio from receiving signals from any radio stations, including FM stations. Included with the story of the Highway 18 landing was a drawing made by the youth of the object he claimed to have seen. That drawing is reproduced here, along with a photograph from Saga's UFO Special Volume 3, published in 1972 by Gamby Publications Incorporated, Brooklyn, New York. The magazine is a collection of UFO articles which appeared previously in Saga. The photo was included with an article on UFO occupants by Timothy Green Beckley, and no explanation of it was given other than the caption. Antonio Ribera spotted this saucer near Barcelona, Spain. We reproduced the photo merely for comparison with the Highway 18 UFO drawing. According to a recent newspaper article by UFO investigator John Keel, a surprising majority of all known sightings tend to occur on Wednesday. Keel notes that sightings tend to peak around the 10th and 21st of March, April, July, August, September, and January. He says an unusual number of sightings seem to occur on the 24th. Keep watching. They apparently are watching too. UFO watching. From the Gaffney Ledger, February 9th, 1973. A different kind of outdoor sport apparently is becoming more and more popular in our area. The activity is called UFO watching, or chasing the flying saucers, so to speak. I don't know if this area is presently undergoing a UFO flap, or whether interest was generated by our story of the Highway 18 UFO landing, and simply more people are watching. It is known that UFO flaps do occur in certain areas at certain times, when the UFO seems to concentrate its interest on a particular area, and UFO reports are frequent in that area for a period of weeks or sometimes months. Such seems to be the case in our area at the present time. Anyway, in our investigations of the Highway 18 landing, we have come across more UFO reports here than ever before. One of the most interesting reports we received, other than the landing, came from a woman in the 99 Island area of Blackburg. She said she was traveling south on 99 Island Road, which is Secondary Road 43, about 10 p.m. January 3rd, when a domed, saucer-shaped object suddenly flew over the top of her car. The object, which had an assortment of various colored lights spinning around its bottom, appeared to be at about the height of a utility pole when first seen. The UFO, which was larger than a car, dropped down behind some trees on the left side of the road and proceeded to follow the woman's car for about a half-mile down the road. The object then sped off and disappeared from view. The flashing lights, which appeared to rotate counterclockwise around the bottom of the craft, were arranged alternately in various colors: red, blue, green, and white, the witness said. The object itself, which was dark except for the flashing lights, appeared to be constructed of a shiny silvery material as observed in the light given off by the flashing lights. When the car sped up or slowed down, so would the UFO. The woman noticed that her headlights, which were on bright, dimmed when the UFO was near. If you plan to participate in the sport of UFO watching, you may find the following comments helpful. First of all, you will need some idea of just what a UFO is. As a science teacher friend of mine points out, a UFO is not a bird and it's not a plane, though it might be occupied by a Superman. Seriously though, he says UFOs are not stars, shooting or otherwise, planets, comets, Earth satellites, balloons, helicopters, nor any other such conventional objects. What the UFOs are, the embarrassing truth is we don't know what they are. If we did, we wouldn't be trying to find out. The most popular and commonly held theory is that UFOs are spacecraft from some other planet. However, I have found no convincing evidence to support such a conclusion. Indeed, I feel the spaceship theory may be fostered to divert us from looking elsewhere for the origin of the UFO, and to generally discredit the flying saucer mystery, little green men, Martians, and that sort of stuff. Another theory is that UFOs are some type of classified government craft, either ours or theirs. If this is the case, we certainly are wasting a lot of time, energy, and money building planes and rocket ships. Others theorize, are you ready for this? That UFOs are time machines visiting us from our future. This theory also fails to comply with all observed facts related in UFO reports. I think if the UFO problem eventually is solved, the answer will be much more surprising than any of the present theories. According to the Air Force, who chased the UFO for more than 20 years, and who never caught one, by the way, the UFOs pose no threat to our national security. There is no evidence UFOs are spaceships from outer space. And UFOs do not represent any technological advancements beyond our present capabilities. These conclusions are interesting in themselves and should be carefully studied to see what may be between the lines. If you encounter a UFO, the first thing to remember is don't panic and don't run away. If they want you, they probably can get you anyway. What we suggest is that you stop and observe. If you have a pair of binoculars or a telescope, use it. If you have a camera, take a picture. Wouldn't it be better to say, here is a picture of the object I saw, than to merely say, I saw a UFO? Under no circumstances should you approach a UFO too closely or attempt to make physical contact with the object and/or its occupants. Some persons have reported being burned or experiencing electrical shock while attempting to do so. If they want to contact you, that's a different story, but let them do the contacting, not you. Use all your senses in observing the UFO. What shape is it? How large is it? What color is it? What is it doing? Do you notice any sound? Does the UFO have any effect on nearby objects? These are a few of the things you should note and write down what you observe. Once you have seen the UFO, what should you do? Whom should you tell about it? The Air Force says it is no longer interested in the UFOs and is referring sighting reports to local police offices. Needless to say, police are ill-equipped, inexperienced, and perhaps even less interested in handling such investigations. However, it still might be a good idea to make a report to them so it will be on record. There are numerous UFO investigative groups in this country who have a more serious attitude on the subject. Two prominent ones are the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization at Tucson, Arizona, and the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena at Washington, D.C. In this area, there is a UFO investigator, George D. Fawcett, at Mount Airy, North Carolina, who is presently cataloging sightings in North Carolina and South Carolina. We would suggest that you report your sighting to a serious UFO investigator. And, by the way, we are serious UFO investigators too, so don't forget us. As George says, happy hunting. Skywatchers found looking up when night falls. From the Gaffney Ledger, February 21st, 1973. Hundreds of people lined the roadsides in the Draytonville community Tuesday night, casting their eyes skyward. The object of their search was one of several phenomenon reported in the area skies from 8 p.m. until midnight. Farmers, businessmen, housewives, school teachers, youngsters with their dates come on bicycles, on foot, in cars, and trucks to gaze at the skies. Reports that 4 lights had chased a car on Highway 5 in Blacksburg, and that an object had lit in a field in the Cashin's Crossroad community only added to the excitement of the evening. No one had the binocular concession, but it might have been a profitable venture. Many of the skygazers admitted having seen some strange object in the sky either last week or this. "I am 48 years old," said one Gaffney man, "and I have never seen anything like what my family and I saw Sunday night." He said he was hesitant to say anything about what they had saw because folks would think we are crazy. The Sunday night sighting occurred in the Draytonville community also. The man and his wife, who were out scanning the skies again Tuesday night, agreed that the things they spotted were not any kind of ordinary aircraft. He said his family sighted 4 objects in the skies, flying in formation. The 3 lead objects were cylindrical, cigar-shaped, and about the size of a target sleeve, used for target practice and pulled by an airplane. However, target sleeves do not have lights and are pulled behind aircraft. The man said these objects were in front of a much larger object which was egg-shaped. The larger object was said to be about the size of 3 automobiles. The sighting was said to be from about 300 feet away. All 4 objects had superstructure, and inside were bright lights, almost every color, and the glow would go from dim to bright as the thing traveled from west to east at a fairly slow pace. "I know aircraft when I see it, and this was no airplane, nor was it any kind of helicopter," the man said. The man and his wife agreed that the only sound made by the objects as they passed overhead was a gentle hum. "It sounded very much like an electric motor running," the man said. "I don't know what it was," he added, "but I've never seen anything like it in all my life." Dancing lights, bright glowing balls of light, flashing red lights, 3 and 4 lights in formation were all among the reports of those gathered in the Draytonville community Tuesday night. Several aircraft passed over the area, but were quickly identified as aircraft by persons who had brought binoculars and telescopes. On a high hill near Broad River, just off the Old Ford Road, the observation point for the new Cherokee County recreation known as UFO watching, several moving objects were pointed out to this reporter. Since we couldn't identify the object, mainly because of the great distance between us and it, we have to concede it was unidentifiable. Therefore, it would have to be categorized as an unidentified flying object, a UFO. UFOs being seen again. From the Columbia State, February 27, 1973. Back in 1966, 2 Gaffney policemen walked into the station house and told other officers they had seen a flying saucer land on the Buford Street extension in their city. The policemen said they saw a little man, the size of a child, about 4 feet tall, get out of the saucer. The ridicule these men received from their colleagues and the public made them regret ever having mentioned it in the first place. For a long while, they were the butt of every flying saucer joke anybody could conceive, despite the fact that under normal circumstances, the officers' credibility would not have been questioned. Since early January of this year, Cherokee County, of which Gaffney is county seat, has been in and out of the news regarding flying saucers. People who have never believed in flying saucers now contend they have seen them. This time farmers, businessmen, school youngsters, school teachers, housewives, and policemen say they have viewed the phenomena. So far, nobody has come up with pictures. Reportings have been in the hundreds. They have varied from hazy, distant sightings to close-up, detailed descriptions. At night, as many as 50 cars are parked in the Draytonville area with saucer watchers. They bring telescopes and binoculars. Unidentified flying objects range in size from as big as a house to the usual description of 15 or 20 feet wide. They are at times described as cylindrical, cigar-shaped, triangular, and round like a saucer with a cabin on top. Lights generally are red or orange, but sometimes white, blue, and green. During the past week, a growing pastime of Cherokee Countians has been flying saucer watching. Roger Painter, a reporter for the Gaffney Ledger in company with several people, saw 4 unidentified flying objects flying along together in a straight line Sunday before last, and again last Wednesday at Draytonville. He estimated that the objects in the first sighting were 4 or 5 miles away, and in the latter, a mile or 2. Among those with Painter on the first sighting were a high school science teacher. Along with Painter on the second sighting Wednesday were a former city councilman, the managing editor of a newspaper, and another man. The most vivid accounts of the sightings come from a girl in the 99 Island section of Cherokee County and a youngster in the Draytonville community. In early January, the girl reported a saucer came across the road above her car and hovered there as she traveled. She described it as being a flat disc with rotating lights around the bottom. She could not see the top of it to tell whether it had a dome during the brief time it hovered there. On January 19th, a 16-year-old youngster said he came upon a saucer on Highway 18, 13 miles south of Gaffney. The saucer, which had landed on 3 legs, had a dome with red, yellow, white, blue, and green lights rotating around the dome. It was about 15 feet in diameter and somewhat higher. The youngster said he saw 12 men standing around the saucer. They were wearing white coveralls with buttons, buckles, and bells all over the clothing, the youth said. He described them as being of average height and all of them with black hair. They were shaped like earthlings, arms, legs, etc., but appeared to wiggle, he said. The undulations were described by Painter as like seeing something through a gaseous haze. The dozen men apparently became aware of the youth's presence and turned their heads in unison, the boy said. He departed hurriedly. 2 of the youth's school teachers said the youth was reliable. A Gaffney police officer said he had seen what appeared to be a big ball of light. He said the object moved too rapidly for any planes or aircraft that he knew of, and that it could decelerate to a stop almost instantly and as quickly resume its fast flight. The officer said others on the police force had seen the flying objects and that one officer saw one hovering over the city's reservoir. In this instance, the strange object had a dome and a saucer shape beneath. All its lights were white. A spokesman at the police department said police used to send a car out to check reportings, but they had become so numerous they had stopped doing this. When asked what the police car would do if it found a flying saucer, the policeman said, "I don't know." Presumably, the saucer which landed on Highway 18 could have been given a parking ticket. Eyewitnesses tell of sightings. What are they seeing up there in the sky? From the Gaffney Ledger, February 23, 1973. A large group of persons lined a knoll in the Draytonville community Wednesday night and watched 4 mysterious red and yellow lights flying slowly in a straight line formation just above the horizon. The lights appeared to pause and hover a moment, then continued their flight in an easterly direction. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light lit up the ground on the horizon just below and in front of the objects. The flash was followed by a sequence of 3 more identical flashes in the same area on the eastern horizon. Stunned observers, some of them watching through binoculars, said the flashes appeared to be huge explosions on the ground or the flash of some giant cannon. However, no evidence of an explosion has been found. The 4 objects in the sky, the lead object being somewhat smaller than the other 3, continued their flight until they disappeared from view. The sighting was just one of many reported almost nightly in Cherokee County for the past several weeks. Interested persons from all walks of life load their families into automobiles and head for the country in order to get away from the city lights and the street lamps in hopes of seeing one of the unidentified flying objects reported plaguing this area since the early part of January or the latter part of December. Persons in cars, pickups, and even camper trucks some of them packing sandwiches and coffee and carrying portable heaters to ward off the night chill, line the roadsides and hilltops, or travel the isolated country roads, trying to glimpse one of the strange flying objects. And see them they do, almost on a nightly basis. Interest in the UFOs, which increased in this area when the Ledger published the story of a local youth who said one of the objects had landed on Highway 18 south of Gaffney last January 19th, has now reached a peak, and persons who have seen them are calling for a reasonable explanation of the phenomena. However, no reasonable explanation has been offered by any responsible agency, and the mystery has only deepened. Following the publication of the Highway 18 landing story, a Blackburg area woman told us that her car was followed on the night of January 3rd by a circular-shaped object which had colored lights rotating around its bottom. The object followed the car a distance of about 1/2 mile down 99 Island Road. Her report was only one of many similar incidents reported during subsequent weeks, one of the most recent occurring Wednesday night when 3 flying lights followed a car in the Mount Ararat church community. Another woman reported that 4 brilliant white lights paced her family's car along Highway 5 near Blacksburg late Tuesday night. Still, another couple said that they had been followed at Draytonville by a UFO on 2 separate occasions last week, the first on Tuesday and the second on Friday night. One of the objects flew so close to the auto that the woman said her husband exclaimed, "Well, this is it. They're going to pick us up." 2 weeks earlier, the couple saw a UFO which made a humming sound when it rose, hovering in the area. The UFO which followed the couple Friday night was joined by a similar object, and both objects stopped and hovered nearby and appeared to flash red lights at each other. They then flew off in different directions. The woman noted that their radio had gone dead when the UFO flew over their auto Tuesday night at about twice the height of a utility pole. 4 weeks earlier, a woman said her car had been followed in the Asbury-Rehoboth communities by a light which seemed to merge with a larger light. Another witness in the Asbury section last Sunday said 3 smaller lights appeared to emerge from a larger light, and the 4 flew off in an easterly direction. The same 4 objects, or similar objects, were reported about the same time Sunday night by observers in at least 5 different areas of the county. One family watched the objects as they swooped down just above the treetops as though they were going to land, and crossed the road in the White Plains area. Turning their car engine off, the family noticed a humming sound apparently coming from the objects. The UFOs made a wide, sweeping turn, climbed into the sky, and headed toward the Draytonville area, where they were observed by witnesses there. One man, who said he was close enough to observe the object's superstructures or fuselages, said the 3 smaller objects were cylindrical shaped, while the larger UFO was egg-shaped. They had rotating or flashing lights around them. The objects traveled in a straight line formation, with the 3 smaller ones going ahead of the larger. The witnesses noticed a whining sound, similar to that of an electric motor, as the UFOs passed some 300 feet over his head. He said, "They definitely were not helicopters. I am 48 years old, and I have never seen anything like them in my life." Observers on a hilltop at Draytonville watched through binoculars as the objects continued their easterly flight and disappeared into the distance. At least 4 persons in the Draytonville community reported having seen a glowing white triangular-shaped object land on a hillside in a pasture February 11th. A second similar UFO was hovering above the landed object. The men stopped their car, and the hovering object then turned red and flew away at a rapid speed. The frightened men also fled. 2 of the men reported that their car was followed later that night by a similar UFO. The object, which flew lower than the surrounding trees, stopped and hovered each time the car stopped. Finally, the object flew away, but was reported again later that night. One man reported earlier in the evening that a glowing object, which appeared to have antenna-like devices on its side and a window near its top, had hovered near his home. Others last Monday night reported a triangular-shaped UFO with yellow lights all over it and a red light on the back traveling west. The object stopped, hovered a while, reversed its course, and disappeared as if its lights had been turned off. Another man reported observing a bluish-gray light hovering near the road off Green River Road near Highway 29 late Tuesday night. The light suddenly became brighter, crossed the road, and disappeared behind some trees. The man noted hearing a sizzling sound, like that of an acetylene torch, when the object first started rising. A Blacksburg woman said she saw a silver, cigar-shaped object traveling in a northeasterly direction as she hung out her wash Thursday morning. Though the UFOs have been reported mostly in the Draytonville section, they have been seen in virtually all areas of the county. Reports have also come from Macedonia, Beaver Dam, White Plains, Asbury Rehoboth, Sarrett, Grassy Pond, Corinth, Cashin Crossroads, 99, and other areas. Attempts at explanation of the phenomena have ranged from power company helicopters checking the lines to Army war games, and from airplane landing lights to weather balloons to will-o'-the-wisp. However, most persons who have seen the objects are reluctant to accept any of the conventional explanations. That Thing in the Sky Has Blacksburg Agog. From the Gastonia Gazette, February 24th, 1973. The wind was kicking up more than usual on the chilly Wednesday night as residents of the small town here prepared for bed. Suddenly, a silent but brilliantly glowing object was observed moving across the sky. It then hovered over Whitaker Mountain, which caresses the northern border of the community. The bright, pulsating colored lights were seen by frightened motorists and townspeople simultaneously on each side of the mountain. Through the sleepy town of Blacksburg, the news traveled like wildfire. UFOs. Assistant Police Chief Robert Childers received a call at 9:30 p.m. from Sue Moore, who excitedly described a strange object darting about the sky and then settling on the mountain. The thing had pulsating red, green, blue, and white lights surrounding the perimeter, she claimed. She and her husband and 14-year-old son watched the thing from their yard. Once it came directly toward the house and scared my son, she continued, so he ran inside the house. Childers, a veteran officer who knows almost all 2,700 residents of the town, scrambled into his white police cruiser and drove toward Mrs. Moore's home, located about a mile from the mountain. When he arrived at the home, Mrs. Moore pointed out the unidentified flying object hovering on or near the top of the mountain. I saw strange white and red lights up there, confirmed the assistant chief. While Mrs. Moore continued to watch the thing, Childers jumped into the police car and drove toward the mountain. As the policeman approached the foot of the mountain, he was flagged down by a motorist who was flashing his lights and blowing his car horn. The man's eyes were almost popping out of his head, remembered Childers. He told me that he had seen an object with strange flashing lights cross the sky and then hover on the mountain. That man was really excited, he added. Childers said he drove around the mountain until he came to the dirt access road leading to the top, but when he drove a short distance up the hill, he found a chain blocking his path, so he backed down the mountain. The distressed motorist was Eston Carroll of 1109 East Wind Circle in Gastonia. He was driving back to Gastonia with his wife and children after visiting his mother-in-law in a Gaffney hospital. Carroll, a retired truck driver, said he was driving north on Interstate 85 when he and his family spotted an object with pulsating colored lights darting across the sky and heading toward Blacksburg. He followed the thing to the mountain, where he found Childers and told him of his sightings. It was a beautiful and silent thing traveling across the sky, he said. I had never seen a UFO before and wanted to get a good close look at it. Meanwhile, 20-year-old Doug Lee was returning from Gaffney with his girlfriend. All of a sudden, a bright light flew by toward the mountain, said Lee. Lee quickly drove to his home at 201 Chestnut Street in Blacksburg. He found his brother Frank, a 21-year-old textile worker, in his car watching the brilliantly glowing object with binoculars. The thing was so bright I couldn't even make out its shape with the glasses, explained Frank Lee. He concurred with the other observers, saying he saw blue, red, green, and bright white lights. It wasn't like any light I have ever seen. It glowed brightly, but didn't give off a beam of any sort, Lee added. And on the south side of the mountain, 19-year-old Curtis Martin saw the same object while driving on Highway number 5 toward Blacksburg. Martin, son of a deputy sheriff in Cherokee County, confirmed the description given by the other youths. In the town itself, Harry Cook heard the police traffic about the unidentified flying object on his police monitor. He too tried to look at the thing through binoculars, but was unable to determine the shape because the lights were so bright. It was mostly white lights, but occasionally red lights flashed, explained Cook, a service station employee. At 10 p.m., Craig Reynolds, 16, and Bobby Davis, 17, were pumping diesel at the truck stop on Interstate 85, about 5 miles north of Blacksburg. 2 UFOs came over the mountain and hovered. They had blinking colored lights, agreed the youths. The boys ran into the truck stop and yelled at the Teamsters to come out and see the objects. A bunch of the truckers and also our boss came out and saw the things, said Davis. He added that Craig became frightened and ran. Finally, one took off toward Gaffney and the other toward Grover, added Davis as he pumped gas into 50-gallon truck tanks. Childers, an affable and open-minded officer, spent Thursday afternoon with the Gazette reporter tracking down the UFO stories. Early in the afternoon, before the interviews with the townspeople, the assistant chief speculated that the mysterious lights were really a fire on the mountain set by Duke Power Company to clear land. As the afternoon faded into night, as more and more people confirmed the UFO reports, Childers admitted grave doubts about the fire explanation. I sure would like to believe there was a fire there Wednesday night, he said, but too many people saw the thing for it to be only a fire. He said he personally did not observe the object move across the sky, but did witness the strange glow of white and red. There was a fire on the mountain on Wednesday afternoon, but no one could really confirm that it renewed itself during the night. The people interviewed were very vehement that what they saw was not a fire or an airplane. How could a fire move across the sky, hover, and have pulsating colored lights, responded the witnesses. It definitely wasn't a fire, said Mrs. Moore, and it was flying too slow and low for an airplane. None of the townspeople said they observed anything like a fire on the mountain that night. And if anyone tries to tell me the lights were swamp gas, I'll punch them in the mouth, threatened Frank Lee. Childers explained that sightings of UFO have been reported to the police in the Cherokee area for the last several weeks. He said the Wednesday incident was the closest sighting to Blacksburg. Cherokee County Sheriff Ernest Harrington has refused to comment on the number of UFO reports coming to his department. Unofficial sources claim that hundreds of sightings have been reported recently. After the numerous sightings in Blacksburg Wednesday night, the citizens of Blacksburg armed themselves with binoculars, cameras, and telescopes and waited for the objects to reappear Thursday night. The vigilant townspeople were disappointed as the objects apparently didn't return. But Blacksburg Police Chief Johnny Wright said approximately 75 persons in the nearby community of Draytonville reported similar sightings. A spokesman for the National Weather Service in Charlotte said he knew of no unusual weather Wednesday that could cause the strange sightings. A plane did crash that night, but it went down in McDowell County in North Carolina after taking off in Banner Elk. It is not thought that the plane crossed the South Carolina line. The mystery is now, and will probably always be, Unsolved. But as this paper went to press late Friday night, those people in Blackburg who were still awake undoubtedly cast their eyes upward to watch and wonder. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments below what state you'd like to see me cover next. If you have your own scary story or close encounter to share, you can either send it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.